So if you're scheduling a session with, let's say, this four-piece band, you've got a singer, you've got a guitar player, a drummer, and a bass player, and you want to do 5 songs. Well, there's a formula for that I usually use to figure out how much time exactly am I going to need to record 5 songs properly. And I have a little pencil and a paper here because I probably want to have 2.5 days per song to get that done. So what does that turn into be? Let's see, 2.5, and then we got 5, and so 10 days, right? It's about 10 days to do 5 songs. 4 songs? 2.5, 5? No, maybe 5, 6, 12, maybe 13 days comfortably to do 5 songs. 13 days, maybe with a 4-piece, maybe we could cut that down. We might be able to get it done in 10 or 11 days if we're really cranking. And what that includes is tracking drums, overdubbing bass, overdubbing guitars and multiple guitars, doing vocals and multiple vocals, overdubs, harmonies, and mixing and spending a whole day on each mix. Okay. So that's the type of budgeting that I do for time. I myself, as producer, I'm kind of expensive. So if you're budgeting for your own band to go in the studio, you want to budget for, let's say, 5 songs. You want to budget to buy 11 days in the studio, and then you want to add a per song fee for your producer too. Yep. Right? So on top of the studio time, you have a production fee. Mm-hmm. And maybe even an engineering fee depending on the studio. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So for this is like an example of if all the band's pre-production is totally done, arrangements are all done and stuff like that. How often do you find bands come to you and say, hey, we need help finishing this song, or we're halfway through our pre-production, we want your input on it? Does that happen? And how does that figure into your time calculations?
Well, what happens a lot of times is I'll do all the pre-production with the band ahead of time. If we're committing to recording 10 songs, then I'll ask the band a month in advance to send me all the material they have. If they have 100 songs, great. Then I'll go through and I'll pick 15 of those songs that we'll take into the studio with us. And of those 15 that we both agree on, I'll give them notes on how to improve those songs, like adding an intro or finishing the outro, or working on transitions or working on the beat in this section, or I might have them write a new bridge. But I'll give them detailed notes for the songs that we will be recording, and then let them finish that. Hopefully they'll have most of that work done by the time we go into the studio. If not, we will spend some time in the studio working on what I call pre-production. There's changes when we record that we do after all the mics are set up, and we start listening, and we record some songs, we listen to it, and we go, at that point it's like, wow, well, this kick drum pattern, now that I've really heard it, needs to be changed. Let's work on that. Or we need a better transition here, so let's work on that. Sometimes I'll even have a band go in overnight while we're in the studio and say, I want you to rewrite this entire vamp of the song, just do something completely different. And they'll come back the next day and we'll have something really much different and better, hopefully. Another thing that these days happens is we'll start a project like that. We'll pick the songs. We might record all the basics for those songs, 10 songs, all the drums. We get the edits done. And then at that point, we might actually, I might actually hand the project over to my engineer for them to save money. And then they work outside of the studio. Maybe they work at someone's house on their Pro Tools rigs. And then they save money that way. And then send me the files afterwards, and I'll finish the mixing that way. So any number of ways of doing it. I get also a lot of projects sent to me for mixing, but that I didn't record, and I might actually guide the recording while it's being done just to help, so when I get the files that they're not a complete disaster, because it's always good to have some direction, when working with an artist, to help them along if they're doing a lot of the recording themselves. Did you have any other questions?
Yeah, we have a few.
Okay.
When establishing your sounds, which set of monitors are you using? The NS10s or a different set? What do you use? What's your ideal setup?
At my studio in Ashland, Oregon, I have a set of NHTs. I've been using them since for 25 years. They're NHT M100s, and they're just like big NS10s. Here at Avast, I'm checking all my sounds on the Yamaha NS10s. They have some nice Genelecs here, but I find that the Genelecs are too sweet. They make everything sound really good, and that will fool you if you think that you've got a great sound, and then later on you take your files out of the studio, and it doesn't sound nearly as good outside the studio. But I can trust the NS10s for getting sounds here today. It doesn't allow me to hear the low end, so I'll check back on the Genelecs every once in a while to check and see what my low end is like.
Okay.
Yeah.
And when you're in Pro Tools, do you record in 44.1 or 48?
I bounce
right?
between. What are we at right
96.
now? 96. So yeah. So
Okay.
today we're 96. It really depends on what's available.
Okay.
But sometimes I'll go for the lower just to save drive space.
Okay.
Yeah.
And one more question about the garden hose.
Yes.
How long's this garden hose, so the people that heard it know? And then how long's like your garden hose in your studio, and what would you prefer?
This is a very long garden hose. I think
At
it's
least 25 feet.
25 feet. Usually I use a 10-foot garden hose, but I'm thinking that the 25-foot might be better. I think any garden hose will do. On one project, there was not a garden hose available, but there was a vacuum hose, and I used like an accordion type vacuum hose. Wasn't nearly as good. It's because it's a thinner material.
Yeah.
So the thick garden hose material works really well. Yeah.
Okay. Is there anything else you want to add to the budgets and kind of working with the band on budgets and planning? Any
Well,
other
one
thoughts on
thing that I found in building my studio in Ashland, Oregon, is that it makes a huge difference if the band is able to stay where they're working. Ashland, Oregon is kind of in the middle of nowhere. It's on the I-5, driving up just north of California. So when I had a studio in California, for years I had a studio called Radio Star. It was in an old theater. And we had apartments. So bands would come in from out of town. If they were staying in an apartment, then they were completely immersed in the project. If I come to where they are, let's say there's a Seattle band and I'm here at Avast, but the band goes home at night, sometimes that's a problem because there's so many distractions in their own personal lives. The band is oftentimes distracted when they come in the studio, and they're not completely immersed in the music. I think having a band come in from out of town, stay right next to the studio, and work for a week on a project or 2 weeks. Sometimes we'll work several months on a project, and just every day, from noon to 10 p.m. work on this music, and then after we're done, then they go into their apartment and work on what parts are they going to work on the next day. They work on setting up for the solos, rehearsing the solos for the next day, finishing the lyrics or whatever. That's just 100% working on the project. I think that the results are way better. So I suggest if you're building a studio and want to bring in clients from out of town, provide a place for them to stay and you'll get much, much better results.
Okay. Maybe final question, one or two more.
Okay.
And then we'll wrap. Do you ever use Isotope RX or other noise reduction software to reduce guitar hum?
That
use
is
that.
really great. RX is a great tool for many reasons. It gets the pops and clicks out of recorded material, and it will help with the hum. That's one thing that we could do to fix the problems that we're having with this pedal. However, I want to go to try to reduce it at the source first. You know, it's much better to work on it ahead of time and not lean on those plugins later, because they do take some of the clarity out of your recordings later. Even as much as they're great tools, they do take away something. So yes, I do use RX
Okay.
on occasion.
Have you used boundary microphones? How often do those play a major role in your mix?
Boundary microphones. Yes, I've used some great Shure boundary microphones, actually recording the kick drum with excellent results. Also, boundary microphones, if you tape them onto the walls, they are excellent for room sounds with that, because they reduce the reflection. You don't get the reflection because it's actually on the wall. So boundary microphones are great. There was some microphones that I saw yesterday. They were hydrophones. And this is something I don't have and I haven't used before, but I was at Microsoft yesterday on a tour, and they were using hydrophones to create the some of the Foley work for the Halo game series. And they, you know, these microphones you can immerse in water. This is very inspiring. So I think I'm going to, not on this session, but on my future sessions, I'm going to get a big water bottle, a hydrophone, put it in the drum room, and have that hydrophone in the water
Wow.
while we're tracking drums.
Cool.
Yeah, right?
Sounds awesome.
Yeah. So yeah, microphones are exciting and fun.
Yeah.
And making your own is also fun and exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, any final thoughts as we wrap this segment up for
Well,
people?
I think I'm lucky today because I've got a great little band. They've got a fun song. We're pretty much set up, and so the hard work is done. I think the next time we get together to do this, that we will be recording this band, and since all this preliminary work is done, we can just have fun.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to that.